Welcome back. I'm your host, Zane. Today, me and my friend Fidler will host an improvised interview with made-up characters played by the other person.
We would like to welcome you.
Double, toil and trouble. Wax your zone and shave your stubble. Take your licorice long and black, and welcome back to Welcome Back. Oh, I am sorry, this collar is just choking me. Welcome back to Welcome Back. I'm your host, Fidler, and in the Halloween spirit, today I have a very special guest in the studio. You all know Halloween, the night where your little youngsters dress up as their favorite superheroes or comic book characters or serial killers, and they are let out onto the streets of a rich neighborhood to go get candy from the neighbors. Or if you grew up like me, in the middle of the day with a bunch of cars parked in a lot with their trunks open with candy out called trunk or treat, because my parents didn't trust any of the children to go trick-or-treating. But no, you know Halloween, you know what happens, but that isn't how Halloween used to be. Before trick-or-treating became a thing, we all know that it was kids would dress up in their costumes, and whichever kids had the greatest costumes, someone would come at night and put candy in their pillowcases while they slept. And I am here with the person who used to do that before Halloween was stolen from him. So please welcome back, Santa Claus but Halloween. Welcome into the studio.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, Santa Claus but Halloween used to be your thing. You were the Easter bunny to this holiday. But then all of a sudden trick-or-treating comes along, and the candy redistribution has been put in the hands of the parents instead of you. So what happened? How did Halloween get stolen from you?
Yes, it's interesting when you think about it, because you don't think that Halloween is something that not only would have a figure such as a Santa Claus, but Halloween.
Santa Claus but Halloween.
Exactly. But nobody really remembers it, because it would just be one of those things like the Tooth Fairy, where you'd throw on your costume, light some orange candles, and then you'd just go to bed, and then whoop, it would be right
and
in and out of
the orange candles is sort of how you would be able to tell that the house was celebrating Halloween.
Exactly. This way, if it was blue candles, I would know, no, we're waiting till Christmas. If it was yellow candles, I would know Asian, gotta stay away from there.
If it was green candles, they'd be Episcopalian, and they would kill you as soon as you walked in.
Exactly. There's the whole signals thing in the window.
Exactly.
And the red candles, of course, that means Santa could have a little fun. Well, Santa, but for Halloween.
Yeah, Santa Claus but Halloween.
And so it's actually quite interesting, because the myths are what pushed me out, you know? It was all the whole, is this terrifying old man is shattering, because I was never quiet. Like, I was...
No.
Because
you really got into the Halloween
spirit. So you get Santa Claus, who's this quiet man and comes down the chimney or whatnot. But for Halloween,
Santa Claus but Halloween,
I was very, very contradictory in the fact that I would shatter windows and bust in saying, "Who the fuck want it?" And most of the kids were very heavy sleepers, so they didn't wake up, which was convenient for me, and I didn't get sued. But I would break in and say, "Who the fuck want it?" and jam this candy.
Pretty much the Merry Christmas of Halloween is just who the fuck want it.
Yes, exactly. It used to be that before Trick or Treat. Oh my god. Could you remember all the kids just bound like in the costumes
with their who the fuck want it t-shirts?
Yes, and then they'd go to class and they'd be like, "Excuse me, teacher." And then they'd hold out their bags and they'd say, "Who the fuck want it?"
And of course, the response call would be, "We the fuck want it."
"We the fuck want it" was the proper response call. And then both would get to indulge in the candy.
Exactly.
But the myths kind of pushed me out of bounds, you know? Because they'd be like, "Oh no, this giant ass old man shattered my window last night screaming, 'Who the fuck want it?' I'm terrified that intricate sexual endeavors are about to occur."
Well, unless there's red candles, in which case they're not very intricate at all.
Yes, exactly. It's very
straightforward,
exclusive.
Exactly.
But the thing is, in this moment, people would start to have nightmares, which is what I was going for. I wasn't going for happy memories.
Halloween's a spooky holiday.
You get happy with candy.
You do.
Then you get sad with rape images in your head from me breaking into your house.
Exactly.
It's a very 50-50, and I think it's an even trade. Candy for rape. I think that's how it's been forever.
But you can see how some people might find that problematic to the point where they try to change the underlying structure of a holiday.
They might find it problematic nowadays, because nowadays we've got people in white vans, as you know I would drive, but I would put
much like Santa Claus for Christmas has his sleigh, you have Santa Claus but Halloween, you
exactly,
have your white van.
I'd get a white van so it looked like a reindeer covered in snow, and then I'd put a red giant ass red dodgeball on the front for a nose.
Exactly.
And do not put the antlers because those would be trees, and if they fell off, it could kill somebody. But I only went for the threats.
You're,
I didn't go for
you're in the
killing.
shattering glass business, not the downing trees on a road
If
business.
people get cut while I'm shattering glass, that's on them for sleeping so close to their windows.
Exactly.
If people get killed while I'm doing this, which there have been some sad occurrences, I just take the body and then we just forget about it. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of moving on, let's move on. So now you, obviously trick-or-treating came and is now the sort of staple for Halloween, and your kicking in windows and who the fuck want it days are over. I'm curious, if you, Santa Claus but Halloween, are so tied into the aspect of Halloween and are so dedicated to making sure children get candy in their pillowcases, why not just revise your approach somewhat? Maybe tone down the violence and sort of assault imagery that your shtick is, and sort of make it more palatable for a children's holiday.
Well, it's very interesting that you mention this, because, as it were, the myths had pushed me out so that Halloween has become what it is now, where people get candy based off of this scary image that no longer happens to them. But these people in the white vans nowadays try to bring what I did, Santa Claus but Halloween, back. You know, they get the white van, they offer everyone candy, people get terrified.
Exactly.
That's Halloween. That's what the essence of Halloween is. But people are too scared. They're like, oh, this is so wrong. And well, that's what the tradition is. And so have I thought about changing my tradition? No, of course not. Because then I'm not Santa but for Halloween. I'm Santa but for Christmas. Because then I quite fucking literally break in and put candy in a stocking, and then I'm out.
Essentially, there's only once your sort of uniqueness is taken from you, there's nowhere else you can really go.
Exactly. If I change my method, I am quite literally not myself anymore.
You are not
because
Santa Claus for
if I'm more protective of the household windows, and then maybe I say I take a lighter approach and go through a chimney. Well, that's been done. Let's say maybe I try not to shove it under somebody's head, but closer to a fire and a stocking. That's been done. What could I do?
You can't hide eggs around people's gardens.
That's been done. I can't rip teeth out of people's mouth holes. I can't.
Well, that's interesting, because I don't think the tooth fairy actually removes the teeth from the child.
Do you want me to get into the backstory of the teeth fairy?
I mean, I'm not surprised that you personally know the tooth fairy.
The teeth. Well, there's a teeth fairy, but for Halloween as well, because as you know,
there's a tooth fairy, but for Halloween. I did not know that.
He's one of my undergrad students. And it's because, you know, as a candy, it rots your teeth and whatnot.
Exactly.
And what the teeth fairy, but for Halloween, would do is, instead of letting the teeth fall out naturally and then you get money for it, he says, well, I know that you want candy because you've clearly eaten so much that it's happened into your mouth, that I will come in, and while you are asleep, I will give you a little bit of Novocaine, and then I will just...
That's
I will rip it. I will rip the teeth, well, because he's ripping. If he wasn't ripping, then that would just be rude. I'm already breaking in yelling, who the fuck want it? The kids wake up, oh my god, slap them in the face, Novocaine needle right up in the mouth, rip out the teeth, shove some more candy under there, and we say, you'll thank me in the morning for this, because now you can have more yum. And we would say, you would have more yum is our way of saying, your teeth are gone, but we left you some hard candies to suck on, because we're fucking considerate.
Exactly. So actually, there's a you're Santa Claus but Halloween, and there's a teeth fairy but Halloween.
Yes.
Are there other versions of sort of holiday mascots or mythical figures that also have Halloween forms that mostly involve around breaking and entering into children's rooms?
Well, of course there is. There was an Arbor Day tree, but for Halloween.
Really?
That was one of my favorite pals. Unfortunately, he got killed in a car accident. It was a very minor incident for someone so magical and all-being, wouldn't you say? If
Arbor
God
Day
got in
tree,
a
but
car
Halloween.
accident, that would be kind of lame, wouldn't it?
Kinda, yeah.
Well, you'd just kind of feel...
You'd feel like it was anticlimactic.
Yeah, my tree friend, he got real fucked up in that accident. Unfortunately. So what he would usually do is, you know, nowadays people hear that tapping of the tree on their window and whatnot.
And that's
people,
how they know it's Arbor Day.
People know but for Halloween.
But for Halloween.
The Arbor Day tree, but for Halloween. He would tap on the window. But what he would do is actually, he would shatter the glass for me.
That
when
seems
I
to
was
be the
breaking
recurring
into the
theme.
house. And so what he would do is he would shatter the glass, and I would say, who the fuck won it? And then he would very aggressively point right at the child for me.
Exactly.
And then he would...
Answering the question, in essence, that the child the fuck
You
wants
are the one who... Because they're just waking up. They're in the daze. They can't say,
Exactly.
we the fuck won it. They're all like, what? And then the tree points at them, and he's like, oh, yes. Pardon, I'm going to use my kid voice. The kid would be like, oh, that's me. I won it. But... most of the time, they're very out of it, and especially with the Novocaine, they're like...
there's a man in a tree and a fairy right in front of them. and they're
Exactly,
little.
the Teeth Fairy for Halloween, Arbor Day for Halloween. There's a
Santa Claus
Cupid for Halloween as well. And
Interesting.
instead of shooting them with love arrows, he would just shoot them with an arrow to stabilize them in the bed.
So really you had like a whole A-team thing going on here. The Cupid but Halloween pins them to the bed with
Yes.
an arrow. I assume this happens after Teeth Fairy but Halloween has administered the Novocaine.
No, we have to stabilize them beforehand.
Before the
to make
Novocaine.
sure.
So the Novocaine is not only to prevent the pain from the teeth that are about to be pulled, but also to numb the pain from a literal arrow sticking a child
Because
to their mattress.
we need to wake them up so they go, ah, because
Exactly.
it's gross to open a child's mouth. We need them to just do it.
So in their howling screams of pain from being stuck with an arrow to their bed, that is when the teeth would be pulled and the candy would be
That's when the
administered.
Teeth Fairy come in, and that's when I'm putting the candy under the bed. Arbor Day trees pointing like you, the one who's gonna lose the
Exactly.
teeth and get the candy. We used to have a it is a very interesting one because most people don't understand how this would work. We used to have a dreidel, but for Halloween as well.
A dreidel, but
and
Halloween.
Most people didn't think that we got along. We got along
yeah.
fucking terrifically.
I'm trying to think about how Dreidel but Halloween would fit into the sort of sting operation you had going with the candy delivery.
Well, it's very, very simple because we would have a dreidel for Halloween, and then we would also have a New Year's firework for Halloween.
But Halloween.
Yes. And so what would happen is we would obviously after we've done the whole teeth thing and the candy thing, we say now we need to, kind of spruce up the memory, lighten this and whatnot, and there's going to sting a lot. So what we do is we jam like a really big dreidel in their mouth, for like as people would do with towels or any
sort of
kind
numb
of
the
bark,
pain,
so
yeah.
they could bite down on this
On the
dreidel,
dreidel.
and the dreidel would be screaming dreidel, 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 dreidel. But it's screaming because it's in the mouth, so it's
Exactly.
very quiet. Dreidel, 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 dreidel. And then we'd put with one firework right next to the ear and one right next to the left eye, and we'd light them both off using what can only be known as the St. Patrick's Day ass fire, but for Halloween. Yes, but ass fire, but for Halloween, because there is no ass fire, but it's just the one that's for
It's
Halloween,
just the fire.
and will always be for Halloween. And what it was is we light it with the little Leppy would come in and he would put the lighter up to his ass cheeks and light this firework over here, firework over there. Bang, and you're deaf in that one ear. Bang, you're blind in
Blind
both
in one
eyes
eye.
because it fucks up the whole cornea configuration behind the eyes.
They're very complicated pieces of organic machinery.
Yes, and we had this whole intricate system. People hated it, and we'd do this and we'd do that, and then they'd be like, "What the fuck did this happen?" And we thought, "Well, wait a minute. If we leave behind evidence that this man is deaf in one ear and blind in both eyes, and the candy is under the bed, and he's been stabbed through the stomach, or
There's
maybe
an arrow
near,
pinning him to
yes,
the chest.
through the heart, and his mouth is numb. He's missing teeth.
missing teeth.
And he's also got an egg laying on his knee
From Easter Bunny but Halloween.
Easter Bunny about Halloween.
Is the dreidel still there, or has the dreidel left with you?
The dreidel is very in and out. We never know where he
Literally in and out of the mouths of children.
He chooses, and it's very interesting whether he stays or not. Because as we all know, in the timely tradition, and this is before it was taken by the Jewish culture and whatnot, the dreidel. What he was really going for is he was saying dreidel, 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 because he was lonely and wanted a home. And the reason he spins is because he drills into things, wondering if he can, dig in and burrow himself a little home. And the thing is, if you were a good boy, the dreidel would leave. But if you were a bad boy, the dreidel would say, "I like it here," and he would drill himself down in and burrow and make a little home within
in the throat cavity of children.
within the throat cavity, and that's why a lot of people have that cough. If you cough,
That's where that cough came from. That cough that everyone has.
that one cough means that you were once,
That one cough means that you were a bad dreidel boy.
and it's hereditary. So that's why if you don't remember me, little Saint Nicky Penis from Halloween, it's because it's hereditary, and it's because your parents were little bad boys and gals, and they got a little.
The sins of the father on the sins of the child.
And they have a little dreidel living in their throat, boys. And the thing about this is, after all this would happen in the Easter Bunny, but for Halloween, what he would do is, usually you leave eggs, and then there would be treats inside and whatnot. He would just leave an egg, just a real one,
like a real raw egg.
just a real raw egg. Sometimes it would hatch. It'd be very miraculous. Sometimes people would get baby chicks. It'd be very, very inspiring. But the thing is, you just leave one egg balanced perfectly. I don't know how he did it. Right on the kneecap of the right patella. And it would just be laying and just be teetering there all night and whatnot.
Teetering.
People would toss and turn, but it would still balance.
The egg would somehow still be there.
He was miraculous. And so after all of this would happen and whatnot, we would think, oh, wait, if we're living behind all of this evidence, this person's going to know clearly something is not a lie. We might have erased the memory. We might have dulled the blow, but we have to get some of that back. Now, you might think, well, why did we do it in the first place? Why didn't we
It's
just
the spirit
see?
of Halloween.
It's the spirit of, it's all, that's the trick. And then there's the treat. So you get the candy for the treat.
That's where the sort of phrase trick or treat came
Yes.
from.
It used to be trick and treat until there was this clause in, it was weird, the clause
Yeah.
of 89 where they...
The having the choice of trick or treat. I remember hearing a lot of people who were very pro-choice.
There was the whole ruling of if it should be trick and or treat, and there was a lot of backlash on that because they were like, how do you have one without the other?
There was that weird offshoot group that wanted it to be trick but treat.
Trick but treat, yes. That was an interesting one. The one where you get the trick, but really turned out, that's where Sour Patch Kids came from.
Exactly.
And so we had to figure out, well, we our personal selves, we need someone to, to help us out here. And so we got the orthopedic psychiatrist, but for Halloween.
Exactly.
And the thing is, if you guys don't know, June 2nd, which is also known as Orthopedicians Day, Appreciation Day.
Orthopatrician Appreciation Day.
With, breast cancer awareness is included in there just for that day too.
Just a lot of medical stuff is all sort of crammed into June 2nd.
And yes, and also race for scurvy,
Scarf Scotchman Day?
and Scarf Scotchman. Poor bastard. Oh, I have a story about Scarf Scotchman. Let me get to it in a minute. The thing is about this orthopedician.
Scarf Scotchman, famous
Yes.
orthopedician, but for Halloween.
Yes, Scarf Scotchman. What a man! And so what he
And
would,
how was he involved in the breaking and entering and candy process?
well, he a very, very humble boy. Now, if you guys don't know Doogie Howser, this man, Scarf Scotchman, is about 9 years old, and after an accident, he went back 1 year and has stayed there forever. We don't know what the convenience of this superpower was or whatnot,
And
but
he's
he is now.
involved. He's involved in the evidence clearing process.
He was once a 9-year-old boy and is now an 8-year-old boy. And what he would do is he'd work on the eyes. He would go, house to house, and he'd be like, well, take this eye, I'll put it here. And then these people would be like, well, wait, now this person's missing it was a whole mismatched thing. And so we'd have to do this. We'll put this eye here. We'll do that there. And that's why half the world goes blind once a year, is because this happens. Now, normally, people don't understand this. The fireworks only blind you for so long, so all we need to do is make people think that they're delirious in the morning and get glasses.
And then time passes, and then
And that's what's been happening.
Because when a firework goes off right next to your face, really all you need is just a good night's sleep.
It just
and your corneas are fine.
Yes, but what we
essentially.
need to do is we need to swap eyes. Swap,
And that's
swap
what Scarf
is what we do.
Scotchman, but for Halloween, did.
Scarf Scotchman swap is what we would like to
The
call
Scarf
it.
Scotchman switch swap, but for Halloween.
The Scarf Scotchman swap for Halloween because he used to do
the
it.
starch potato skip top, but for Halloween.
Yes, and you know what's the fun fact is he actually used to put in headphones and listen to only the Baked Bean Beanie Baby Beaver voice as well.
That's fantastic.
Yes, and this room is
Really just to sort of back
phenomenal
that
to
up.
him. And so what Scarf Scotchman would do
Scarf
is he
Scotchman.
would do that with the eyes and whatnot, and then he would give us a thumbs up, and that would mean don't go yet. And it was his way of saying, hey, over here with his thumb,
With his thumb.
don't go yet. But then once
And as
he,
we all know, Scarf Scotchman had thumbs that were 3 feet long.
yes, and he would wave them back and forth, kind of like the inflatable tube man.
Exactly, the Jiffy Lube boys.
Yes, and then as soon as he would do one thing where his thumb would turn bright purple, like really, really bright purple.
Like a royal deep purple.
Like an insane, like a crazy amount of purple, like a black light amount, and that would be when we were like, okay, we can move on and let's go, and so that's what Scarf Scotchman would do. Unfortunately, the reason we don't know about Scarf Scotchman anymore is because one day Scarf Scotchman was driving with Arbor Day Tree.
Oh no.
And he said, you know what? I have a bad feeling about this trip. I'm gonna get out of the car. You know what? I'm just gonna call a cab.
Get out of the moving vehicle.
Yes.
And he forgot to tell Arbor Day to stop driving first.
Yes, but fortunately, Scott Scotchman has good eyesight, and he did a little tuck and roll, got a cab and whatnot. Arbor Day tree, but for Halloween just kept going. And Scott Scotchman was like, I wondered to where the wind is going to take him because, it was a little metaphor because trees blow back and forth in the wind.
Boy.
Scott Scotchman gets in a taxi. Oh, lo and behold, that taxi burning crash into Arbor Day tree. It's just a shame.
It really is a tragic
And
accident.
to think that if Scott Scotchman had stayed in the car, Scott Scotchman would have lived because he has the eyes on the road. As unfortunately, he had to stay in the back of the taxi where he was too busy looking at the little TV news that they have on there where they were like, and this is happening again.
Well, he wanted to keep on tabs to make sure that Halloween was proceeding as planned, which was really his dedication and what he carried with him to his untimely and fiery death.
Unfortunately, we've had this whole endeavor that's led us to today, where now people go to parties and dress all sexy like, and they don't remember to put up the red lights, which is very upsetting for Santa Claus before Halloween.
Really is a tragic memory of what Halloween once was, and despite the blindness and the Novocaine and the arrows through the sternum, it doesn't just quite capture that same Halloween spirit now.
And this is why I've started an Indiegogo page, so bring back Who the Fuck Want It.
And you can find that on our Welcome Back page, and you can donate to that. There's some interesting stretch goals there. A lot of them involve sort of like waiving liability so that certain things can happen to you, but we'll let you look on that and make the decision for yourself.
Thank you.
Santa Claus but Halloween. Thank you so much for being here on the program. Keep that in mind when you're going trick-or-treating tonight, and keep an eye on what Halloween used to be. And we'll be right back.
Halloween.
Teeth Fairy.
But Halloween.
Scotchman.
Halloween.
Who the fuck wanted?
Who the fuck wanted?
Welcome back to Welcome Back. I'm your host, Zane Shaw, and today I have a very spooky, or should I say spoopy, guest with me today. He is very, very known along the radio stations because he's been doing this for about 50 years. Please welcome, for his Halloween special announcement, Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody, the drunk spokesperson for the AM radio show How Is It Hangin'? Where he once wanted to call it How's It Hanging, if I'm not mistaken, but he was so drunk that he said handin'. And so now he hosts the show How's It Handin'? And I heard Lolasaaahhmbody today for a Halloween special. He's going to pitch us some of his own very own Halloween spectacular ideas for talk show today.
Well, thanks very much for having me on the program, Mr. Shaw. Really glad to be here.
Very glad to have you. So before we get into the pitches,
Absolutely, pre-pitch.
because we want to make sure that our guests know what they're getting into.
Oh no, absolutely.
Let's talk about your shows and whatnot. So
Let's talk about it.
how long? Because you've been doing this for 50 years.
So that's sort of the answer to the question. Is 50 years.
That's how long you've been interested in doing the AM
Well, that's
shows?
how long I've been. Well, you see, I've been interested, but I've been doing it for a little longer than that. But it took me a couple of years to get interested. Because first I was doing it sort of very perfunctorily, because it was sort of a requirement for my family. My parents were radio professionals, and so they put me on the radio. And for 3 years, I was like, I don't really want to do this. But then I did it, and then I sort of got interested, and then boom, 50 years just flies by.
That's phenomenal. That is phenomenal that you have been
Exactly.
into this business for so long. I mean, I can't even commit to my wife for 50 years.
It's a lifestyle. It's a career.
So the thing is, off this show,
Yes.
how is it handled?
How is it handed? Is the
Now,
name of the show.
I understand that sometimes you drink before your shows, you drink during, you drink
Exactly.
after, and when the pitch for the idea came out, how's it handed? People were like, what the hell does that even mean? But then as the show went on, how's it handed is now at the top of the charts every day after the AM ratings come in.
AM radio ratings.
Now, just for the people that haven't listened to your show, just talk about what you usually talk about on How's It Hand, and what are some of the main topics you discuss?
Well, of course, a lot of it comes from the fact that in the early years for the show, I would be very intoxicated, and it was how I would sort of set up the basis of the show, was that I would be very intoxicated, and I would have guests on, and I would sort of just start with the question, how's it handing? Which, of course, the guests would also be very drunk at that point, and because you can't really be coherent if both people are drunk, but you kind of access this second kind of conversation when you're talking with someone who's also drunk, and you say, how's it handing? And they're like, I'm doing pretty well. And then you just sort of, your variations on a theme, sort of a Rhapsody in Blue, back and forth between you and the guest for a while until one of you sobers up enough to realize that you've just recorded 40 minutes of garbage, and then you sort of put a plug on it, and people liked it. Now, I will say that my liver isn't what it used to be. I've been doing a lot of drinking for this show, and to make How's It Hand and what it is, and the past few years I've been trying to find sort of alternate paths to achieve the state that I used to be in when I was able to drink and sort of get to that. And a lot of it is sort of my body is so used to being drunk that I can sort of kind of lean into it and get into that mind state. But a lot of times I've been turning to some more homeopathic methods. Right now I'm doing a lot of stuff on cactus sugar. Cactus sugar. I got it from a guy in a tent in Nevada. And so I went down there, and he showed me this way that you can ferment cactus sugar so that it sort of goes right into the bloodstream. Really, really, really skips the whole idea of having to taste it and sort of have it happen to you. You just put that right into the bloodstream, and you're ready for a round of How's It Handin'?
Wow, wonderful, good to know. Cactus sugar. Exactly. I've never even heard of it.
Prickly boys.
Does prickly boys? Is that what they call it?
That's the sort of colloquial term for it in Nevada.
So,
I prefer cactus sugar, but I wanted to go for a little bit of local flavor there for any Nevada listeners.
So when you jam some prickly boys into you, does that get you going for your show?
It gets me ready to go How's It Handin' these days. I just started using it a few weeks ago, and given how how I've pretty much destroyed my body with alcohol over the past 50 years, my body's very sort of quick to form immune systems against other types of depressants and stimulants. So I'm sure in the next couple of weeks I'll have to go to some other state in this glorious union and find another guy in a tent usually people in tents.
Right.
What sort of work me through
the most attentive people.
The most attentive people for people in tents. It's very tense, very intense. And you try to find ways to sort of just put me in the How's It Handin' state, and try and make the show what people tune in for.
Well, that's wonderful. But for right now, you think that you're gonna do prickly boys before your shows?
I think cactus sugar is gonna take me through the end of the month. I'm really feeling good about it.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. He's gonna be doing prickly boys before his shows for at least the end of the month.
Get prickled for the How's It Handin'?
Now, speaking of pitches, now you are a mastermind when it comes to pitches.
I pitch all day.
I've heard rumors that you, in the bars where you would go before your shows, you would just ramble, and people would just write novels about everything you were saying. It would just be pitch after pitch after pitch.
Man in the elevator pitch.
Did it come from the bars, or is this just a gift?
Did the pitch come from the bars?
Being able to pitch, was that the fact that you're drunk thing, or is it an inner gift?
The drunkenness is sort of it. I think a lot of it is also, again, that my parents were radio professionals, and they sort of their whole job was about making pitches and making sure that their livelihood was based on their ability to pitch. So I sort of grew up around that, and in a sense, even the basic sort of childhood rearing was done in the form of pitches. When I wouldn't brush my teeth, they would pitch teeth brushing to me. They'd be like, picture this: you're eating all day, you're getting these germs all over your teeth, you're getting tartar in between your gums, and you're gonna have to go to the dentist every 6 months, and they're gonna take those hooks to you, and your gums are gonna bleed like it's really, really bad. But what if there was something you could do 2 times per day? Wouldn't take more than 2 minutes. You could do it in the comfort of your very own home for very little money. That would make those dentist visits a little less painful. It would make your teeth feel a little bit more clean every day. And they would show me the toothpaste and the toothpaste and the tooth cleaners, and that was how they pitched toothbrushing to me. And they did that for everything. They did that for toilet training. They did that for making sure I got my homework done. And so I sort of gained that, and I sort of used that, and that was how I sort of developed the skills of language, was through the genre and the overall goal of pitching something to someone.
That is fascinating. That has been running through your family veins for that long.
Exactly. It's been jogging, let me tell you that.
So as far as that goes, that means that this should be no problem.
Exactly.
Because we've heard from our people in the back, Larry back there in the back.
Exactly.
He has told us for this Halloween special that you are going to pitch us some ideas for a Halloween spectacular
talk show.
Yes.
All right, so I've got a few ideas rambling around in the old noggin.
Wonderful.
And a lot of them really based off of Halloween. And so you think of Halloween, you think of pumpkins.
Right.
You know this. You think of carving pumpkins.
Yes.
And sort of making all the shapes in them, and the faces, and you put the candles inside.
Yes.
And so we based a show around that, where the show is sort of a competition for pumpkin carving.
Oh.
And essentially, the goal is, what is the most interesting implement with which you can carve a pumpkin?
Oh,
And we have these guests on, and we have a whole tray of, and most of them are ideas sent in by listeners of things that you could carve a pumpkin with, but not necessarily the first choice that you'd go with.
Right.
So we have safety scissors.
Oh, yes.
We have Joy-Cons from the new Nintendo Switch system. So you
Fascinating.
jab those into a pumpkin hard enough, you can kind of make a shape with it.
Right.
Hypodermic needles. Mm-hmm. Those are always sent in. And
Always lying around.
It's very much like a Top Chef thing. They ding the timer, and you go up and you get whatever implement you choose, and then and it's very interesting because it's a radio medium.
Right.
So you don't really get the visual experience of seeing the pumpkin get carved with like a wooden spoon.
Right.
But what we really do is we put the microphones inside of the pumpkin.
Oh.
So it's really sort of an ASMR experience of sort of the sound that the implement will make when it's plunged into the pumpkin. And we actually don't tell them what it is until the very end of the show. So there's a sort of competition aspect on the part of the listeners. They can call in and try and guess what the pumpkin's being carved with from inside the pumpkin.
Very
And
interactive.
so the name of the car is What's Carving You?
Ah.
And it sort of poses a question, because it's like, you want to know what's carving you, so you call in and you find out. And we have, it's co-hosted by Dana Carvey,
Right.
Which of course works really, really well for the title there. And it's what's carving you with Dana Carvey and Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody.
Wonderful. All right, I really like that one actually.
Yeah,
I think
so
I might
that's the first one. That's the pumpkin
listen
one.
in on that one.
Exactly.
All right.
So you go down your first question, and what reminds you of Halloween, and first is pumpkins, and the next one, it's ghosts.
Yes.
And so
spooky.
spooky. Yes, you have those bed sheets with the holes cut over them. Mm-hmm. And ghosts is another interesting thing to do in an audio medium. So essentially, and ghosts are people who's dead. So what we do is we kill somebody.
Right.
We have someone on the show, and very, very early on, it's just very quick, boom, they're dead.
You're right.
And we spend the remaining hour in the show attempting to communicate with their ghost.
Oh.
And so it's been very often successful. We've got lots of different things we use. We use Ouija boards. We have mediums on the show. We have smalls and larges as well, also coming on and
No
helping
discrimination.
helping us exactly. No, we're very open opportunity on the AM radio, and we spend the rest of the hour just communicating with the ghost of that person. And it's so that's interesting. And we sometimes we get little glimpses into the spiritual psyche with that. The ghost will tell us about dead people that they've met, and that sort of thing, sort of people that they've come across in the afterlife, and all sorts of fun stuff like that.
Now that's fascinating to me, because usually isn't there a whole thing about ghosts being picked up on radio frequencies and whatnot? And
I mean, that really ties into it very well. Is sometimes even we'll be recording the show and we won't hear anything from the ghost. But then we hear from my listeners, and they're like, "What are you talking about? The ghost was there the whole time. He was making fun of your speech mannerisms." There was this guy we had. He was a barista at Dunkin' Donuts. Mm-hmm. We had him in, and we killed him. Boom, first 2 seconds dead.
As is.
And we spent the whole 58 minutes after that just trying to talk to him and sort of trying to entice him with donut-related questions, and we didn't hear a thing. And then people were clamoring on the the internet boards. We have a subreddit, sort of talking about like, what, this was the best episode ever. That ghost was just going off on him the entire time. And we heard archive recordings of it, and it's just 58 minutes of this guy completely destroying us. It was me and my co-host, also Dana Carvey.
Right.
And he's just sort of making jokes about us the whole time. It's like, oh, look at these two idiots. They're trying to talk to a ghost. They don't know that I'm in the radio. They don't know that I'm not in the room with them. And, it's just comedy gold. And the real comedy of it comes from the fact that we had no idea. We were just like, Ghost, where are you? And he's like, oh, Ghost, where are you? Oh, these guys are idiots.
Right.
And it was a big hit, big smash hit.
It's like a whole Abbott and Wallace thing. It's like a whole who's on first, whatnot going on.
Who's on what, and why's on Scott Scoffman?
Yeah, Scott Kaufman. I heard he was actually one of the people that you were going to have on your show, but
We
he couldn't
did,
make
and
it to the show.
actually, it wasn't not necessarily that he couldn't make it to the show. It's that we spent the entire show trying to kill him because he was just too slippery.
Ah,
he's
yes.
He's this little 8-year-old boy, and he's got a very thick scarf around his neck. And that's why his name is Scarf Scotchman. So we tried to sort of do the old guillotine like we usually do with the guests because that's the quickest way. And the guillotine just broke on his scarf.
Right.
And so then we borrowed some implements from What's Carving You, some needles and scissors, and we just spent the entire hour trying to kill Scarf Scotchman, and we failed miserably. But it also made for some great radio because the ghost from the previous week was in the radio the entire time saying, look at these guys trying to kill Scarf Scotchman. Oh, isn't that very funny?
I wondered, have your guests been have your listeners been telling you whether or not ghosts are sticking around? Or?
Well, exactly. We have to trust them because besides archive recordings, we only know sort of what we're recording and doing live, and usually we rely on the listeners to say, hey, there was a ghost there you didn't know about.
Right. Okay.
Making commentary on you trying to murder this 8-year-old Doogie Howser boy.
Exactly. So that's fascinating. We've got pumpkins. We've got ghosts.
We've got pumpkins. We've got ghosts.
There is another.
There is
big,
sort
one.
of radio comes in threes.
Yes.
That's why the best radio names are 3 syllables, like Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody.
Which your last name is
one syllable.
Yes, one.
Exactly. You have to sort of somebody make it like one sort of expulsion in the nose.
Exactly.
And so Halloween reminds you of pumpkins. Halloween reminds you of ghosts, and Halloween reminds you of candy. Candy, of course, candy. Everybody talks about candy. Everybody knows candy. Santa Claus, but for Halloween, used to burst in with his holiday gang and leave us all candy under our pillows before trick or treating take over. And candy. So you think of candy, sort of how candy can go onto the form of a radio. And essentially, this is more of a sort of caller-in type thing where people will call in and give us names for types of candy.
Oh.
And me and my co-host, also Dana Carvey,
yes,
will think of sort of what form that candy could possibly take and sort of what the ingredients will be. And so someone will call in and say like nanopods. I hear that and I think of nana pudding. I think of the nana pudding that my parents would pitch for me. It's like, what if nana but pudding? And so we would say, obviously you start with the sort of the banana flavor.
Yes.
And you have the squishiness of maybe a nougat. And sort of get that banana nougat flavor, and you wrap it up in a nice red wrapper with white letters that say Nana Puddin',
yes,
Nanopods,
right,
would be the name of it. And we sort of riff on the audience, and sometimes the ghosts will show up there too.
Fascinating.
And we'll hear from the listeners. The ghosts will be like, "Wow, look at these stupid idiots making up names for candy. Look at these dorkwads. What are you trying to put nougat in everything? There's nothing wrong with nougat, but it's kind of in every single candy you've made so far. Like someone once called in. This was very funny. Someone called in and said, "Fruit John's no nougat." And of course, me and Dana's first thought was, well, of course we have to put nougat in this,
right? Because
nougat goes in everything.
Yes.
And the ghost just fucking went nuts. He was like, these idiots, they not only do they put nougat in everything, they get someone that calls in and says Fruit John's no nougat, and their first thought is to put nougat in it. And it's like, Dana Carvey, Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody, what are you doing? What's with the nougat obsession? The ghosts really are. They just sort of leak out from that one AM radio show. Really just make the whole show really enjoyable. I think without the ghosts, we'd be in a pickle. Speaking
of, I heard that there was actually a show that you guys were considering doing, whether as a special or for a couple episodes, whatever it is. It's called, I swear to God, I kid you not, I'm Possessed, starring Dana Carvey.
Exactly.
Where
Dana Carvey and Lowell.
Dana Carvey comes on and you talk to him for about an hour, and he talks about how he swears to God that one of the people that you have killed has possessed him. And he just, for an hour, he can't get over the fact that he believes that
He believes wholeheartedly that he is being possessed by a ghost. And that one's, we really think that we can only sort of make a special or a couple episodes of that one because there's only so far you can go with that shtick. But I think it could really be a good one-off or a good trilogy. For sure. Is Dana Carvey being entirely convinced that he is possessed? Because a lot of the methods that we used is very similar to a ghost show, which is what we call it, ghost show. The one about ghosts, where it's trying to commune with the ghost, and it's that extra human element of like, there's not necessarily a ghost that could like be in the radio while me and Dana are trying to find him. It's like me trying to get the ghost out of Dana. Right. So there's a lot of interesting sort of radio stuff that we could do there, but probably only a one-off series. All right. Well, that's fascinating. Now, working off, we've got pumpkins, we got ghost candy. Pumpkins, ghost candy. Possessed. Yes, exactly. It's all there, whatnot. We have a couple more critters in there, and I feel like if you could. Now, I know you came in with a couple ideas. I did. I know there's something in you. Just throw one out there, pitch it off the top of your head. I'm gonna count down to just go on go, or I'm gonna say. Are you gonna prompt me? Or I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, and then you're gonna throw some words at me. Okay. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Nougat. It's got to be nougat. Essentially, what you start with is the nougat because Halloween. You just think of nougat because it's so good. There was actually I'm on the cactus juice right now, but you did some prickly boys before the show? Well, not necessarily before the show, but cactus juice is sort of what I'm using to get into the drunk state for How's It Hand. And wait, so have you been doing prickly boys like
right?
No,
now?
well, not immediately before the show, but to sort of eventually, once it works its way through my bloodstream to get to the how's it handed state. But for 25 years,
Gotcha.
most of the things I get from people in tents that sort of get me to that drunk state last like a few months before my body builds up an immune system.
Right, that's the intent, right?
Exactly, that's the intent of the tents people in tents. But 25 years ago, there was a man in a tent who sort of prescribed an alcoholic nougat for me. And that nougat sort of wrecked my shit for 25 years. My liver could just not build up a defense against it for a quarter of a century, until finally I sort of moved my way past the nougat and had to be huffing trash for the next few episodes to sort of get myself to that state. So nougat's been really good to me. Nougat's always on the top of my head. And so I think we do a show that's just nougat. I think we get some Three Musketeers on there. I think we get some other nougat-filled candies, and we sort of we eat them, we chew right into the microphone, and we talk about current events.
You know what people never talk about?
Exactly.
And it's funny that you mentioned this. Is the little tree elves, but for Halloween?
Exactly. The Keebler elves.
Yes, the people that...
Keebler elves, but Halloween.
The people that make those cookies. Mm-hmm. Yes. I've heard that they also know just the best place to find the best nougat.
Oh, exactly, because they put them into all of their cookies, and I've actually had a bit of a feud going on with the Keebler elves, but for Halloween, because they've started their own nougat-themed AM radio show called Keebler Noog, and it's I've been doing radio for 50 years. It's like I'm a radio professional, and these fucking elves, they come in from their tree, and they don't even know what a fucking radio is. Speaking into it, they probably think it's like a fucking tree branch, but this is how many people are listening to them, because it's like they don't want to listen to radio professionals. I don't know what it is, but we're gonna stay in the air, and we're gonna burn those bastards out of our AM waves.
All right, well that's wonderful. Do you, by any chance, because I know obviously you've been doing this show for 50 years, you're gonna go back and you're gonna do your show. Dana Carvey's gonna be there.
Exactly.
It's a wonderful show. People, please check out How's It Handin'.
How's It Handin', and Ghost Show, and What's Carving You, and all the other ones that I thought of.
Yes. And is there any last thing, like something upcoming on your shows or whatnot, that since this is your promo time or whatnot, if you want to get it out to
something
the viewers here?
Something new, something fresh.
Yeah.
Something that sort of hasn't been talked about before. Something that will really revolutionize Halloween. I keep going back to nougat, essentially, because I feel like there's so much to explore within nougat. I think we could really do like a how did this get made, but with nougat, where we just talk about different types of nougat and sort of how they come into existence, and really just get to the bottom of the nougat mystery once and for all. And I don't think that could be a one-off. I think that would have to be sort of a weekly thing. Sort of really get serial with this sort of S-Town this nonsense. Just pick apart nougat for a radio audience wherever AM shows can be found.
Now this is a very important question, because I've heard rumors, but from how much you've mentioned nougat today, I feel like they might not be as much rumors. Now Marvel has actually had a lot of kind of backlash towards you and your company, because they believe that you're trying to steal the Marvel Universe theme bracket that they have for their shows, their Netflix series and whatnot.
Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That you're trying to branch off and create that, but with nougat.
I mean, really, there's nothing you can't put nougat on. I've been stealing intellectual property from people for as long as I know, and just slapping nougat on it. We've got the nougat Marvel Cinematic Universe. We've got nougat Nintendo, just making video games with nougat. And really, I think I'm just slowly taking over the world with nougat. I think you're gonna wake up one day and you're gonna find Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody in your room with nougat breaking in your windows, saying, "Who the fuck want it?" Oh. And you're just gonna get that nougat right in you.
Oh, somebody trying to bring back the spirit of Halloween.
Exactly. It's a spook.
I know that Santa Claus, but for Halloween, had mentioned that people were trying to bring it back.
He did.
You one of the white fans?
Team. And this is actually I have a bit of a confession to make.
Go for it.
I am not Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody. I have this entire time actually been Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody, but Halloween. And
Halloween one himself.
The real Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody is tied up in his closet, screaming about how he hates nougat and has never touched it. But here I am, and it's nougat forever, bitches.
I love it. I'm very interested, and you know what? I'm going to turn into the next episode of Ghost Show to see if Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody might be on the gig.
See if maybe we put him in and we get him on the radio once and for all, the way he's always wanted to be.
Maybe if you really just feed him nougat or whatnot, see if that
exactly. Try and get him on that way.
Well, I'm fascinated. Thank you, Lowell Lolasaaahhmbody.
But Halloween.
Thank you
but
for
don't
coming
put
on
that
the
in
show.
the title of it, because it'd be a spoiler.
Yes, it would be a spoopy spoiler, wouldn't it?
Spoiler. A
poopy
spoiler.
What a twist.
What a twist indeed.
Well, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
For the show.
And that's the podcast, folks. It's just nougat.
God damn it.
Anything you want to say to our listeners, Zane?
Why would I? I already talked about Santa breaking into Santa, but for Halloween.
Santa, but for Halloween.
Breaking into houses, and there's one thing I loved about this episode. Everything came full circle. Everything. So it's Santa
just
breaking
links
into
right
houses. This is Halloween now, but Lolasaaahhmbody is really
Halloween.
But coming back, and he's taking over this job. My God. And Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey's the glue that holds it all together.
Wonderful. Oh my God. Well, this has been a wonderful episode. Thank you for listening in. Tune in next time so we can welcome you back to Welcome Back.
But not Halloween.
Please come back. Welcome you back to Welcome Back.
See you soon.